call not a no-brainer, but a some-brainer, as it were. And I think chat room's coming back in. We should be up and live once again. We are good. Okay, so that was a fun little freak out as the internet took a breather for a moment. But apparently, the woman vote in Florida is going directly to Joe Biden. It is stampeding in Joe Biden's direction. And that change has not been something that happened right after Roe v. Wade, per se. I'm sure it was triggered by it, or they're just now getting around to asking the right folks. And thank you, by the way, for those that liked the stream before, you might have to like it again to give us that boost and let people know we're here. You have to refresh your page.
That stream might have died too, Hal.
You what?
That stream might have died too.
Yeah, that's what happens. So we're back up and going, I think, though, because I think people can see us.
I don't know.
No? Yep, there it is. Yep, we're there. I can see us.
Yeah, it's moving.
Yep,
cool.
You have to reload. So, I'm shocked, and I'm sure a lot of us would be surprised around election time if Donald Trump suddenly got a plurality of the woman vote in the United States, including women and the men who support them. I don't see anybody, and this is in all the back and forth about the polls and which way they're going, which way they're leaning, and how unpredictable and how susceptible they are to what I've called poll jacking over the last 2 years, especially since 2020. This steady stream of poll jacking that's been going on, that they were trying to create the remember the red wave. Remember Johnny Million?
Oh, yeah.
That never happened.
Huge. Oh,
okay.
Boy. I'm still trying to catch my breath from it.
Right. So the polls were all pointing to a red wave. You'll recall this. This was, and a lot of it was like the response after it didn't happen was, how could this have turned this way? How could the polls be so wrong? Well, here's the problem. They aren't wrong. They're being ripped off. They're being manipulated. Poll jacking is my term. You're welcome. And this is directly related to a story that I saw about the fact that Rasmussen, the poll that Trump always likes, and by the way, that was selling the red wave more than anybody else the last time around. When all these different polling companies and these colleges do it and stuff, they contact each other, especially around the primaries and certain like voting districts, and they go, hey, heads up, we're going to be calling or going to this, specifically, we're going to go to this diner during the primary and hand out flyers to people and have them fill out questionnaires and use that as our polling data. We're going to directly, instead of trying to get people on the phone, we're going to physically go down there, college campuses, other places like that. And so they call the other polling companies and give them a heads up so that they don't overlap, so that people aren't getting, they're not hitting the same spot, because statistically they're going to draw from the same kind of pool of people. They're going to, if everybody's looking to poll college students, they're all going to go to the three main colleges in this one general area. So they're going to go, hey, we're going to this college. Can you guys go to the other one? Vice versa. Okay. That's really common, been around for a long time. They always give a heads up. In the past, the polling companies would listen to that heads up and react directly to it. They would go, okay, well, we'll go someplace else, or we'll ask a different group of people, or we'll delay our question, our poll for this, for that group. We'll do another state right now, and then we'll come back to Ohio later, or whatever it is. That's how they used to behave. Now, what happens is Rasmussen calls the Trump campaign, and the Trump campaign sends people to those areas to look for the person who's handing out the flyers, handing out the questionnaires. They specifically, and they all sell their phone number banks to everybody. Here's, this one works back and forth. Okay, or they buy them from companies that sell them. Here's a bunch of voters that will do polls, and then they sell to them. Okay, that now is a coordinated effort as well. This is the exact same stuff we saw with Iowa and New Hampshire. When Iowa and New Hampshire organically were the places where the primaries started, people every 4 years would come down, and Iowa would suddenly have an influx of people that were down there for about 3 to 4 months, just like one of the conventions, because they move around. And they would roll into town for a short while, run up a bunch of grinder bills, and then split, which is what happened in Milwaukee, for example. But in terms of Iowa and New Hampshire, people got wise. So like 4 years is not a long time. And by the time the campaign's over, 2.5 years from now, we're going to be gearing up for the next one. The campaigns start now a year and a half before the primary does on whenever that is. So why don't I just move here? And so the organizations themselves moved to Iowa. They moved to New Hampshire. And they stayed. They set up shop. They bought houses there. And therefore, you no longer have an organic tell in that area because these folks, they know it's coming. This is all part of the process now, which is why it's different from the conventions. The conventions move around. And so they have a different experience every time. You pick a different city. And so that's one of the reasons why we should move around when the primaries start every time to get people involved. And not let people set up the dominoes ahead of time, which is exactly what happened with the Rasmussen and the poll jacking. So and it's going to keep happening. So we'll take a break right now. I know we'll only have a little bit before we come back, but I want to make sure we're kind of stable before Phil joins us. There's a lot of news coming. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Trump tried to undermine Ukraine again by calling Zelensky and basically threatening him, and is coordinating the release of Evan Gershkovich with Vladimir Putin. That if he doesn't get elected, Evan dies. Apparently, yikes.
Neat.
We'll be back. That was a fun little drop off. Like the whole thing just went goo. Like I thought it was
amazing.
I thought it was you guys because you guys dropped out of the the feed in there, and then I looked at my all my other stuff, and then all the these web pages, they all go to the internet's gone, right? They don't stay loaded.
Oh boy, yeah.
And I was like, but I'm fragada. But I remained calm and solved it, and we came right back.
Yeah.
Stoic optimism, my friend. It's a way of life. I'm writing a book. And
It's
the greatest thing
called corporate greed.
That's right. Yeah. How we're all screwed and there's no way to fix it. Thanks, America. Yeah.
There's one time Convoy was a band was opening up for us, and they were going on like a little long. And so like everything they were doing was starting to irritate us. And one of the things they did was they came up to the mic and they said, "This next song's about corporate greed. It's called Corporate Greed."
Oh dear.
So now like every rehearsal we play Corporate Greed, whatever it is.
Right. At home drawing pictures of corporate greed. Corporate greed. Don't call me corporate. Don't call me greed.
Greed.
Yeah. Also, hey, real quick, is your band's an LLC, right? Anyways, well, yeah, we had to for tax purposes. Oh dear. How are you going to explain how you divide up the revenue from song titles if you there isn't any? Okay, cool.
Yeah, no worries there.
Yeah, not really. We're on Spotify. We're not going to make any money.
Yep.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program. Mega Worldwide.
Yes, you are. And eventually, I'm going to have an AI setup that reconnects me through 3 different ways if stuff falls apart, and a little robot friend that talks like R2 that's going to constantly roam around checking and making sure that the signal's good no matter where I go. But until that happens, I'm doing it all by myself. So thank you for your support. Patreon.com/HalSparks. Yes. I mean, obviously, that just right now, that kind of largely is just used to feed me so that I have the energy to deal with these kind of collapses. So that said, Donald Trump has a Florida woman problem.
No.
This is one of the unspoken realities about this election cycle is that this is the first time Donald Trump is facing an incumbent in an election.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Last time the Democrat had termed out, and by the way, that Democrat, were they able to run, would have won hands down. Obama would have trounced Donald Trump and Joe Biden would have rolled into the next term if they just decided to. And then Hillary Clinton would still have been able to run in 6 years if she wanted to. Because it just would, true, I mean, there's no even question about that, right? But one of the things that, that is a factor is the incumbency rule, is that incumbent always has, a leg up. And this happened under George W. Bush and Kerry. It's one of the reasons why Clinton didn't really have to worry about, even in the middle of the Whitewatergate BJ scandal, that it was going to affect that election at all, right? Rarely does someone only last a single term, and it usually means that they are that their own voters turn on them, or there's some sort of skullduggery going on. In the case of Ronald Reagan messing around with the Iranians when Jimmy Carter was in office, something like that. But this is the first time Donald Trump has to face someone who has, the home field advantage in that regard. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Probably the same thing that I'm thinking, which is, if you think they cheated last time and won, and they weren't even in office, and you think they're going to cheat this time when they run every lever of government, what shot do you think you have? That part, that I don't get that one at all. That's because, first of all, it's not true. Let's just be abundantly clear. It's the Biden and his team did not cheat last time. Trump lost fair and square. He's going to lose fair and square this time. But he's going to argue that they cheated and stole it from him. He even said it in his speech. For all the unity talk, he said they used COVID to cheat, and he didn't dance around it. He said it specifically. He used COVID to cheat, right? Which is garbage, but he says a lot of garbage. But the important detail that that always kind of confuses me is, if they weren't even in office and they weren't, Biden was a private citizen. The Democratic Party is a private organization. It's not a government organization. They don't actually have any control over the polls, right, when it's happening. If they were able to win last time that way, what chance do you have if they're in charge of everything this time? That's the part that I find I don't know that they have an answer to. No. Other than we're not going to let it happen because it didn't happen. But the biggest problem they have beyond the incumbency issue is that women make up 51% of the electorate. And Joe Biden is winning that group across all the spectrum of voters by margins that heretofore no other candidate has gotten, including Hillary Clinton. Now, is that a travesty and absurd in terms of the first female president that we could have had that won the popular vote and should have won the Electoral College, but for a bunch of TYT offshoots, leaving the top line blank and giving the Electoral College to Donald Trump? Is that a travesty? Yes, it absolutely is. Should women maybe have, as a bloc, decided it's about time? Perhaps. Am I going to tell women how to vote? No. But women are telling everybody else how they're going to vote this time. And what's happening is, even in a state like Florida, this was a Fox poll in Florida that, while, Trump is holding an alleged 6-point lead over Biden, which is not a lot. That's three close to the margin of error. This is Florida. Let me back up for a second. Joe Biden is polling at 44% in Florida overall in a Fox poll, and Trump is at 50%. Not 52%, not 55%, not 60%. If you asked everybody down there, it sounds like 70%. 50%. 44% going for Joe Biden. If there's a sway of those, and those 6 aren't going to Trump, they're just not there right now.
Right.
Now, which group of people shows up more to vote? According to the survey, 47.8% of female voters said they plan to back Biden, while 44.4% said they plan to vote for Trump. 3%, almost like a quarter point outside the margin of error, right? But still a lead. And women tend to show up to vote more than men do. They make sure, bless their hearts, and thank you, that they are registered. They show up to vote, and they make sure that they vote ahead of time. They're more likely to bank their vote. They're more likely to pay attention to judgeships and that kind of stuff in general as well. And if there's a shave off in Republican voters at all in Florida, it isn't going to be among women, and it isn't going to be among women who are voting for Biden. What I'm trying to tell you is Florida is in play. And this has largely improved since the debate. Explain that to me. If it was quote unquote devastating. I don't want to hear anybody who has to show me a within the margin of error poll either direction. I don't want you to it takes a lot of nerve to use the word devastating in that situation. Unless he's dropped to 10% amongst registered voters, I don't want to hear any word like devastation. Concerning, needs work, absolutely. Always true at this point in the campaign.
Yep.
But if you listen to these people and these polling numbers are devastating, then Obama didn't win his second term, according to them. Clinton didn't win his second term, according to them. Just saying. We'll be back right after this. Philip Bittner's going to be joining us from Ukraine. We'll be back.
The beta boo.
Yeah. Debbie Powell is like almost tied with Rick Scott in the Florida Senate race.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Rick Scott won't go away, huh?
No. But again, there was a Democrat in that seat beforehand. And again, a woman voter, women voters showing up for Biden and a woman running against Rick Scott, who looks like Skeletor. I'm telling you, stuff will get scary tight in Florida. And, they may try to use a hanging Chad kind of an excuse. But this is the reality there.
So crazy.
And there are a couple of areas specifically where I have said, find me a Biden voter who cares about women's rights, who's not going to vote for him because he's old, or is insisting he step down or they won't vote. It's absurd. And anybody who was a Democratic voter who voted for him last time, who's like on the fence that they're interviewing on these people, they are literally, do you know how hard they have to dig to find undecideds right now?
Yeah.
Do you know that's the work. And the question is, once
I was ready to vote 4 years ago.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's the thing. And this is one of the reasons why Biden is so confident and why he has been so confident, because he knows the vote is baked in. And that there will be some people that you can convince to come across, but the volume is already favoring Democrats. And with all the bedwetting, with all the polling, it doesn't matter. Most of it's, if you'll notice too, most of it's attitudinal polling, where they're going to, would you like somebody younger? Would it, is there another candidate you'd prefer? Blah, blah, blah. That's always true amongst a chunk of the voters. It's not going to change their vote. Right? It is, in all honesty, it is not going to change. It hasn't changed a single vote. The fact, that's how bad Trump is as a candidate, is that it has not changed that Biden's debate performance with all the devastation talk didn't move the needle at all. And if anything, it is, again, 538 of all places moved Biden ahead in the Electoral College for the first time since May last week, before Trump's speech. Explain devastation to me. No, but and again, this I think this feeds into the whole like LBJ thing. If LBJ was talked out of running because he was underwater, and everybody's like, nobody with these kind of numbers wins re-election.
60 seconds.
Thank you. And when he said he was going to resign, his approval rating went up to 50+%, 57%. And Phil's not with us yet, so we'll continue on until he joins us. Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed. They have power issues and all kinds of stuff. I wouldn't doubt that they have internet issues as well. So, yeah, give me 1 second. He'll. Yeah. We're coming back. I think we're coming back. Hang on. It's coming back to Johnny Miller.
Come on back.
Come on back. Come on back. And we'll check on Phil soon. Okay, thank you. You stayed out to get you again. Yeah.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you if the putrid slut you're troweling out.
Plus-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back. So, Phil will be joining us in a moment from Ukraine. Obviously, they have power and internet issues there, just like we do, only worse because they're in a hot zone. There's been a lot of news about this. We'll wait to talk with Phil about this, about how Trump apparently called Zelensky on the phone and had a conversation with him, which was basically is going to sound like a threat. And the closer we get to the election, you're going to hear what the contents of that call were, no doubt. And that he was basically, the same thing is happening with Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, is that effectively he's got an agreement with Putin to release him as soon as Trump becomes president, or if he loses, we'll never see Evan again. That's the threat. And it's gross, and it's reminiscent of Reagan and the Iranians. There again, everything with Trump is a reboot because there's nothing original about him, especially his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which again, those details get murkier and murkier and murkier. And Amy Davis is asking about the polling stuff about all the Genocide Joe people. Okay, those people don't traditionally vote either, and they're not going to vote for Trump. If they don't show up, they don't show up. But they're not going to go to RFK. They're not people who traditionally voted for. They didn't vote for Biden last time. Those votes aren't changing. And again, a vote for Trump is a vote for Netanyahu to basically carpet bomb the West Bank as well as Gaza, because Trump has already said it. He's referred to the Gazans as cancer. He said you got to finish the problem. And you have to do it quickly. Now, what would you think would be the problem with quick military actions in highly populated areas? That if speed,
I bet there'd be no collateral damage.
Right. Yeah, that would be kind of I mean, you have to look past that, obviously. And again, this is part of the Trump doctrine. This is absolute, as far as genocide Don goes, Donald Trump took off all the rules of engagement that Obama had put in place in terms of Iraq and Afghanistan and other areas that we were in with drone strikes and he removed those rules of engagement, and the death toll from civilians by American drone strikes went up 80% in the first year. There were more civilians killed by U.S. drone strikes in the first year of the Trump presidency. And it continued, by the way, to the rest of the time he was in there. But there were more killed in the first year than in the entirety of the Obama administration. 8 years. There were more killed in 1 year, because that's the doctrine. That is what Trump wants. That's how Trump thinks you're supposed to act. That's why he likes Kim Jong-un. It's why he likes Vladimir Putin. And it's certainly why he likes Xi Jinping. It's why he thinks they're strong. Because they don't worry about killing civilians ever. as a matter of fact, in some cases, certainly with Vladimir Putin and absolutely with Kim Jong-un, they will kill lots of them just for their own purposes. Obviously, Vladimir Putin getting his position in government with the, after the Chechen attacks on the apartment buildings that we now know he orchestrated. So real clear, if anybody is even floating the idea of I'm not voting because Genocide Joe, what you're doing is you're guaranteeing that Netanyahu has no limits at all. And as a matter of fact, direct instruction from the White House on behalf of Donald Trump to destroy every Palestinian in Gaza, period. Because if there's a Likud push, it will come from Donald Trump's crowd. And Philip Bittner is joining us. I see him in the background. Give me 1 second. There he is. And I will add him in there with us. There's obviously a lot to cover. Go into here if we can. There we go. Excellent. And we will. Hold on. There we go. I'm pasting him in, and he will join us in just a second. Phil, can you hear me? Okay. You hear me? Okay, and I do not hear you. We don't have a mic coming to you.
I don't hear you either, Phil.
Yeah. There he goes.
Oh, how about now?
The mic is on now. That's good.
There we go.
Welcome. So, and Phil is joining us from Kiev, where he is in the studio for On the Edge, his new podcast, which you should check out every Sunday.
It looks awesome, Phil.
Yeah. And
thank you.
Yeah. And hello. And where do we even start?
Sorry for being late.
Not at all.
Well, it's the rolling blackouts.
Sure.
And, I had to set up my battery power. I've got show you what I've got here. I mean, this is the scale of the size of these power banks that you use.
Mm-hmm.
So
for those on the radio, he's holding up a car battery, basically.
It's enormous. It's like the size.
Holding up
it's about the size
to a PlayStation.
It's about the size of a car battery
to get the most of the use out of it, which is cool.
Wish. No, it's most of the lights. I'm hoping that I'll make it until the top of the hour, but I think I'll be okay. I'm running all my lights in the studio, which is not insignificant because of course we want to have high production value for the podcast.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that it'll have enough. We'll have enough power to make it through. So
right. So a couple of things. Obviously, obviously the addition of J.D. Vance to and his alleged, curiously enough, his support of Russia and his denigration of Ukraine has curiously brought. Oops, we lost Phil for a split second there. There he is. He's back.
You're back.
You blinked out. You're fine. Specifically, that it has caused some other sort of more like hawkish Republicans to push back on him verbally, like on which is a strange shift. I was, a lot of us were not expecting that, but a lot of them were getting, pissed at Trump for choosing someone who was very, pro-Russian.
Yeah, and so blatantly anti-Ukrainian. I mean, this is a guy who, when he was at the Munich security conference just last year, Zelensky was there as well and had put out an open invitation to all U.S. congressional members who were at the conference that they could come and speak to him, and most did. As a matter of fact, I think Vance was the only one who didn't. But it was really the really upsetting thing to me, and I know to many Ukrainians, was that when asked why didn't you go meet with President Zelensky, it's a rare opportunity. He said, I already know everything I need to know about Ukraine.
Right.
I don't need to learn.
I can't learn anything
because he's made up
his
mind. Because if I learn anything more, maybe I'm going to be reluctant about chucking this guy and a country of 40 million people who are fighting for their very existence and their independence under the bus. So a lot of Ukrainians are really concerned about Vance in particular, and then Trump as well. I mean, Trump and Zelensky had a phone call yesterday, apparently. It doesn't sound like anything of substance was spoken. Zelensky put out a statement saying that he had, he'd congratulated him on securing the GOP nomination, and that he said, I'm glad you survived the assassination attempt. That's what we know from Zelensky's side of thing. Apparently, Trump was putting out the old tired thing of like, I'm going to solve this within 24 hours. I don't know as that was discussed. I doubt it was, because Zelensky's smart enough to know that that's not possible. And the only way that it would be possible is if Trump came in and said, okay, Zelensky, you have to basically give Putin everything he wants.
Right.
Is, not going to go.
No.
It's not going to work here.
Well, and also it's
Zelensky would be
he's not
ousted
Trump's
as well.
not going to do that. Trump's not going to do that right before before the election, and so that it gets out, because he knows Zelensky isn't afraid of him. He knows Zelensky's not afraid to tell the truth about this, so he can pretend to be like a stable voice in all this, but he just frankly isn't, and he doesn't have the guts or the positioning to go, if you don't do this, you're in big trouble, because essentially Zelensky would go, okay, we recorded this. Here's the recording of him threatening me. So and Trump has to be aware of that. So he's just trying to look like a player on the world stage. Now, it's a violation of the Hatch Act, because we can only have one State Department at a time, and he can't make any promises, right? Anybody can call anybody, but if you start negotiating anything, that's a violation of the law. And again, not only Ukraine, but also we see this with Evan Gershkovich, who was just sentenced to 16 years in a Russian prison. The Wall Street Journal reporter, who the Kremlin is trying to say is a spy, but is really just more likely than not arrested him to use as a bargaining chip and influence over the U.S. And Trump said that he had spoken to Putin. The Kremlin denies this, but Trump says that he had spoken to Putin, and that when he gets reelected, that immediately Evan Gershkovich will be released. Now, even if that isn't true, right? Even if that's a lie that Trump made up, because we all know he lies, that still doesn't. I mean, that still affects that guy's chance to get out of a Russian prison. He's been chucked into a Russian prison for 60. But any negotiation to secure his release is compromised by Trump even saying that publicly. It's irresponsible. And if I was Gershkovich's family, or I'm sure there are members within the State Department who are furious right now, and rightfully so. And
it's deplorable. It's disgusting.
If you're Trump with Biden's new immunity powers, it's a terrible time to start being an enemy of the state. But I'm kidding, of course, because one of my favorite turns of phrase. We got to take a break, and we'll come back in a moment. And again, I want people to check out On the Edge, which is Philip's new podcast.
Good episode this week.
Yeah, new episodes every Sunday. We'll be back right after this. But apparently Alex Jones claims he has videos of the Republican establishment at Bohemian Grove discussing how much they hate Trump and they're mad he didn't get killed. With frenemies like these. We'll be back. Yeah, this is let's see if I can.
Incredible HD footage of the satanic, occultic, druidic ritual going on, and then also the incredible behind-the-scenes behavior, where we literally have the Republican establishment talking about how much they hate Trump, and them responding to him being shot yesterday and upset that he didn't die. We have major Republican kingpins that come to this criminal meeting and make all these insider.
Yeah, that's Alex Jones.
What a soothing voice.
Yep.
No wonder he's a broadcaster.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's got a good broadcast.
We have seen the most
incredible.
Right.
I guess it's just not a good lullaby voice.
Well, it's a great ad. It works. I think he's got a perfect voice for one of those "I used to smoke and I'm dead now" ads.
I'm dead now. Yeah.
I should have never voted. I could have voted that acid reflux is no fucking laughing matter. Yeah. Right.
Acid reflux.
Was it Yul Brynner who did that, or was it Omar Sharif? I try to remember.
I think both. There were a couple of them.
One of the bald ones.
Yeah.
Shemp. Was it Shemp?
Baldy.
It could have been.
Did you guys see
Somebody.
the Rust dismissal? Did you see the video of the Rust dismissal?
No.
Where the case against Alec Baldwin, which should have never been brought. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know,
I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it.
Watch it.
I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the House Bar Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the House Bar Show. Wow. And a guitar note, and then progressive and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide.
Yeah,
welcome
it's
back
gonna
to
be
the
good.
show. I couldn't find my NASA shirt this morning because it's in the wash because I wear it too often. So I just have one of my NASA stickers because it's. I want to wish specifically Carl in our chat room happy NASA Day because it's the 55th anniversary of the Apollo landing today. And
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Cool.
Yeah, if you believe that, which Alex Jones clearly doesn't. I would like to play a piece of audio. I played it during the break, but I want people on the radio to hear it. This is Alex Jones talking about video he has of the Bohemian Grove gathering. And you know how everybody's back and forth about how Biden did this immediately afterwards when somebody took a poke at Trump, which turns out to be a registered Republican whose father was a libertarian on a MAGA gun list. Has nothing to do with Democrats. He is not our problem, folks. In the same way that black people have no responsibility for Rachel Dolezal, this guy is not our problem. Okay, so this is Alex Jones talking about what he saw at the Bohemian Grove.
We have seen the most incredible HD footage of the satanic, occultic, druidic ritual going on, and then also the incredible behind-the-scenes behavior where we literally have the Republican establishment talking about how much they hate Trump and them responding to him being shot yesterday and upset that he didn't die. We have major...
Yeah, that's Alex Jones putting his thumb on the scale that the Republican establishment did this, and that they're trying to get rid of him because. And by the way, if you can think of a better way to get Republican voters to vote straight red ticket, I haven't heard one. So let me get this straight. You're gonna sell me on the vote red or we're all dead concept, and after that guy is out saying that the establishment, and he's not saying who. So it's pick your Republican. Anybody who's not. Even people who are pretending to be Team Trump, according to him. So you don't even know. Shoot, he could be talking about J.D. Vance for all we know.
Mm-hmm. And he's not showing the video. Why is he not showing the video? If he has the video, show the darn thing.
Well, yes, it's from a long way off, and it's the audio's not great. But you hear everything you need to hear. Look, you have to listen between the lines. That's the key.
Well, this plays into what this week's episode is on the edge, because I spoke to a Ukrainian disinformation warrior. Basically, he goes by the name of Operator Starsky. It's his nom de guerre. It's his kind of anyhow. It's not his real name. It's his pseudonym.
It's his Videodrome name.
His war name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, and we go into into a very long discussion about disinformation and Russian disinformation campaigns and information warfare. And it has me thinking, maybe because after I conducted the interview, there was so much information about what's been going on in the campaign back in the States. We all of us have to be aware that the Russians have not stopped their information campaign.
Right.
And every time there is an event, I guarantee you this, every time there is going to be an event, whether it's the debate that went so poorly for Biden, and then all the kind of communications about should he drop out, should he not drop out, and also you see all the kind of misinformation. What did Adam Schiff actually say? What did Schumer actually say? And these kind of things that are floated out there on social media. And then, whatever event happens, the Russians are going to be involved.
Yeah.
Because that's all they do. That's all they do. And I don't want to get into the range of hyperbole because I don't think that they are causal. But the Russians are going to take advantage of. They don't have to be.
They're opportunistic.
Of every
they're
single
basically
incident.
They're basically like the strep bacteria. They just look for a paper cut to kill you.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it is an infection. We all of us have to be aware when something happens, whether it's the attempted assassination, whether it's the communication within the DNC, or whether it's communications within the GOP. The Russians are going to put out elements that are going to skew your perspective of what is actually happening. And that's what this week's episode is all about.
Right.
And I urge everybody to watch it. Any American in particular that is watching this or is listening to this, which is the bulk of our audience, I'm sure. But, be aware. Be aware the Russians are going to be involved in everything, and they're going to muddy the waters. And it's going to be like, well, I see this schism within the DNC, and I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind, in the last 2 weeks or whatever since the debate, that the Russians have been poisoning the well, because it's what they do. We need to be aware of it and constantly push back on it, especially those of us who want to see, Trump defeated, because the Kremlin wants Trump. The Kremlin wants Trump, and the Kremlin wants J.D. Vance. I mean, the reaction in the Kremlin-run media when Vance was announced, they were gleeful. They were just absolutely gleeful because they know that if it's Trump and Vance, that Ukraine
and that in and of itself should be considered a warning. That should be the dead giveaway. That's
when the Russians are celebrating
if the Russians
something
like it.
Yeah,
it's bad.
If the Russians are celebrating, it's bad for us.
And it shouldn't
no
be.
Doubt.
It shouldn't be that difficult to parse. Like, you should be able to recognize that right away. It's not even a question of like, well, they really mean well for this. They absolutely do not. Nobody even like Ron Johnson and them don't believe that Russia means well for the United States. They just want what Russia has. They want this kind of ethnocentric, Christic, anti-gay,
Christian,
fascist kind of government. But they don't actually want any of it over here because the slippery slope of what Russia wants is even more violent than what they're hoping for. They want the kind of Reader's Digest version of the Russian government. Yeah.
Well, right, and they're playing with fire too, because an America that is run like Russia could potentially do some really stupid things, and to the detriment of Russia, unless the Kremlin is really out there with their puppet strings, and Trump really is, and Vance really is a Manchurian candidate. I don't know how directly they can control these guys, or whether or not they're fellow travelers or useful idiots or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, they will tell they tell the story that, or they will put out the narrative. The Kremlin will, that all we really want to do is, we want to come on common ground with the United States, and we're not your enemy. We just want, we want you to not be a unipolar power on the planet, and we just, we want to collaborate and work with you, but only if you're autocratic like we are.
Right.
But even still, having lived in Russia, that's a lie. They have they don't have any goodwill towards the United States or the West in general, especially not the Anglo-American.
They don't have it amongst each other. That's why the BRICS.
World.
That's why the BRICS stuff is never going to happen. That's I got to say, like, for all the talk about the BRICS, the most amusing part of it is the idea that these idiots are ever going to get together when they are, again, they don't even believe in allyship or democratic thought. So why would anybody sit across from a table and go, okay, we all agree on this, unless it's it's a Mexican standoff financially, unless and again, even in the case of Russia, unless you got the upper hand, you're the only one with the loaded gun at the Mexican standoff. That's the only way they negotiate in any of this stuff. There's not going to be a BRICS currency they agree on. They're all just falling back to crypto. They're all falling back to Bitcoin because it doesn't require any of the rest of them to guarantee it or make it functional and the like. And again, the pass the torch, which is this thing that just popped up, a couple weeks ago, to get Biden to step down and all this kind of stuff, all paid for with Russian crypto, all of it. Yep. It's embarrassing.
They definitely are involved in that.
Yeah,
there's no question, but they're involved in it.
They were financing the college campus takeovers. They were, and again, people can be, legitimately believe in those things, and they can believe in, the divesting and, sanctioning of Israel and that kind of stuff. But you have to know that the team that's designing the shell in which you're operating is run by and paid for by people who mean you ill, ultimately, that want to eventually take away everything you have to say. And they will turn you against the best option you have because they want you to grind to a halt, and then they want to take over. And handing that power over to them is partly what's making the Democrats who are attacking Biden so irritating, is because they don't seem to see that what you're saying.
Definitely.
The tweeting that they're getting, the phone calls that they're getting that are AI, they're not even looking past that. And mostly it's older members, if you'll notice, who ironically are calling Biden old, but they themselves don't recognize that they're being botted. We have to take a break, but when we come back, I want to get to some questions, because I know that because we weren't on last week that people have some for you, Phil. So let's do that when we return. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Dude, it's interesting because I obviously follow all these both Russian and Chinese Telegram channels where people post stuff, and it's the only way you can really get footage out of the country is it shows up there, people copy it and they post it in these things so that they're there, like aggregates of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And the stabbings in Russia and China right now, because it's murder season in China anyways, it's pretty terrible. But
I hate that.
But yeah, which is a thing. It really is a thing. Has spread to Russia, whether it's related to it or we're just seeing it now or whatever. But the Moscow station, which usually is full of car accidents and silly enough, it used to just be their dashboard cams, right? Just trucks crashing and stuff like that. Is now full of people just stabbing people on the street. That's now the trend. And it's half of it's guys that got out of jail to go fight in Ukraine and either walked back, left, killed their superior officer and went home, and then murdered their wife and their friends who got them put in jail in the first place. It's nuts. Yeah.
Damn. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That country is starting to
unravel,
really fray at the edges. Yeah. Got it. Thank you, Chicago.
And real quick, let's see. You should check out this guy, Mark Biernot. He's a economist. He's very weird, very hippie. Grows potatoes. I think he's in Finland or Sweden or whatever. But he does videos about the Russian economy. And it's hilarious because he's just you guys are nuts. None of this is true. You guys are talking out of your butt. This is not succeeding. They're falling apart. There's no upside. Look at them. Look how many potatoes they're selling. Are we back yet?
I'm starting to understand why I don't have as much time to talk during my segments, because Devin's bumpers are 3 minutes long. You want a quick promo, Hal? You got a quick promo, Hal.
Welcome back to the Hellsparks Radio Program. Mega Watch, Guys, Press Talk, WCBTM. Woo! Yeah!
So we got a bunch of questions, but I do want to address this. The idea that the Russian economy has weathered the sanctions, that talking point has died a cruel death over the last couple of years, and anybody still trying to resuscitate it has been embarrassing themselves. But the Newsweek, the titles of how they're discussing it, all the people who walk back their story after being wrong this entire time, is adorable. This is the Newsweek title: Russian economy faces creeping crisis, economists warn, meaning that it's never coming back. Russia's war economy is so hot that at least 12 of its oligarchs received $11 billion in financing. They left with it. They fled. That story is about them fleeing the country with the money. Russian inflation will soar even higher as sanctions spark another surge in gas prices, British intelligence says. Russian economy growth forecast upgraded to 3.2% in CBR's macroeconomic survey. By the way, 3.2% from down 34%. Right. See the math issue there? And then 1.45% of their entire GDP went to soldier payouts. Think about that for a second. 1.5% of their entire GDP was for dead soldiers. That's how many people they've lost. It is, and then of course my favorite one is from the Chinese yuan has helped fund Russia's trade war and war machine, but those days may be numbered. They already are. It's the yuan is now the current functional currency in Russia. It's nuts.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Russia's a vassal state now.
That's right. It's so embarrassing. Okay, so I'm sure the questions are there. John,
I've actually got one before we knew that we would have Phil. I've got one from Paul Mixabwing that says, "Can you ask Hal any word on the Chinese president having a stroke?"
Yes, still unconfirmed as you would expect, but he has not been seen since. That's another, it's another very telling sign. He had an aneurysm, I want to say 2 years ago, right at the beginning of the Ukraine war, and there was the big story about how he allegedly chose to treat it with traditional Chinese medicine, which is not true at all. They flew him out of the country. He went to a Hong Kong hospital, and then they flew him, I want to say, to Malaysia, where they had, Western doctors meet them there. So it's silly.
Oh, Pooh Bear.
Yeah, poor Pooh Bear. But
poor Pooh Bear.
His one of the other people that's been sort of jockeying for position has been showing up at meetings, taking over for them. And people will always say he just outsources all this stuff and tells them, he can't be bothered. But it always happens when he's having some sort of a health crisis. So we will keep an eye out. But it's one of those things. It's like the Russian leaders of old. If he's got the sniffles, he's been dead for 3 weeks. Is a lot of how it works. So, yep.
So I've got one from Eileen. This is another Hal one. Sorry, Phil. Does Hal have any update on who will fill in for Sheila Jackson Lee since her passing?
No, it's been too quick. But they'll appoint somebody. It'll be a Democrat. There's no question. And again, her district will elect somebody. I would expect they'll run somebody that was either working with her for a long time. Not somebody that we would know as like a local, politician or something like that, or a mayor or something necessarily, but somebody who worked in her office or was her primary aide or something. For sense of continuity, we'll see. But yeah.
I've got one from Ed's 3D Tech. This is for Phil. Can you ask Phil, is Ukrainian public understanding that polling is not really relevant until after Labor Day?
Mm-hmm.
No, they don't go into that intricacy. Some do. Obviously, it's a big country, lots of people. No, they don't. Many Ukrainians are actually and Europeans generally, are very cynical about what's happening in America right now. And they're kind of like resolved and resigned to a second Trump administration, just because, frankly, there's a lot of skepticism about the health of our body politic. And what's happening. And the Europeans are very concerned. I mean, you see Zelensky going more to his European partners, in anticipation of a possible Trump administration. So I don't think that they do understand that kind of that intricacy or that depth of knowledge about our elections. Having said that, many do, because obviously it's going to change how things go for them. So, there's a lot of grave concern here that Trump's headed back in. So, we'll have to, hopefully they can be dissuaded of that when the inevitable, as you and I both agree, Hal, is going to come in as he begins to further spin out.
Yeah.
Trump. Maybe Ukrainians will and Europeans in general will start to say, oh, well, maybe there's hope yet. So
there's also in terms of Evan Gershkovich, there's some belief and you would know more about this than I certainly, that the speediness of his trial and the opaqueness of it is largely due to the fact that they're hoping to trade him probably for Vadim Krazikov, who's the guy who murdered the dude in Germany in 2019.
In Germany.
So he's being held in Germany, and the idea is that we'll trade him, either 1-to-1 or with a couple of others to get Evan Gershkovich back. The weird thing is that the Biden administration will do it if it's at all possible, just to get him the hell out of there, because it's just going to be a constant collapse. There will be no secondary chance. You just want to evacuate your people, especially if something awful is going to happen. To the Russian, he's not going to be safe in a Russian prison if the government falls. Nobody is. Everybody's just going to die. So it's better to get him out and let Vadim Krazikov worry about getting killed there, when it all falls apart. So we'll see. But
if we can get the Germans to play ball,
right? Which I feel they would. I do I
suspect the idea, they probably would.
Yep. With the idea that. And again, I love how they if you listen to the Republicans and the Trumpites or whatever, the vaccine has a chip in it and all this kind of stuff, but the government is incapable of chipping people it releases back to Russia or whoever else. And you're like, why would they? If you think that, why do you think they're just giving people away? I don't believe any of it, but it's one of the other big holes, the big gaping holes in their sort of paranoia. Let's grab another question, though. We'll get off on that.
Sure, this one's from 56 Nick Rich. Has all industry in Ukraine been directed towards the war?
I wouldn't say all. They're on a wartime footing with their entire economy, so the focus is on the priority is on assisting the war. Although, having said that, also dealing with the wartime situation, because as I mentioned, we have this major electrical problem. So just this week, for example, they removed all restrictions on the importation of technology and equipment that would help with the power grid. So the private energy companies here are now able to import stuff without any import duty or tariff or anything like that. So while it might, everything is involved with the war here, but even like food, energy production, take your pick, everything is affected by the war, but not everything is directly being focused on the persecution of the war. You have to take care of your people still. You still have to have, food and electricity and heating as best you can, that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're building, massive weapons factories in the West, in particular. They've got their own military industrial industries here. So, it's a funny question to kind of answer in some ways, because everything is involved in the war, because everything in Ukraine, life itself is driven by the circumstances of the war, but not everything is a direct contributor to, say, the front line or what have you.
Also, I would like to say for the record, since we last spoke, Russia has all but given up on the Black Sea. Almost in its
yes,
that there are no
Big deal.
major warships in the Black Sea anymore. Because they're, I mean, they pulled them back so they don't get sunk, but also a lot of them have already been sunk. That's kind of an amazing turn that nobody's kind of covering as much as you'd think. That's a huge change, a huge shift.
And devastating for Putin.
Yeah.
Devastating for Putin. You know, they do not have dominion over the Black Sea anymore, and so much of this war is about having a warm water port. Especially, since Ukraine doesn't even have a navy.
Right.
But if they, I have predicted this for a very, very long time. No Russian leader survives losing Odessa and access and control of the Black Sea. This is something that has been a national pursuit of the Russian Empire since Peter the Great back in the early 18th century. This is Catherine the Great is the one who conquered Turkish territories that were here, but they withdrew as the Ottoman Empire started to fall apart. Catherine takes it. Now, any Russian leader that betrays the dream of Peter, abandons the territories conquered by Catherine, and gives up on this dream of becoming what they call the Third Rome. He doesn't survive. Putin is
Which, by the way,
on borrowed time.
Is also another variation of the Third Reich. The Reich was effectively this this anti-Roman version of things. They were going to split it between the Romani. That's where Roman Polanski got his name from. Was the Germans trying to overtake what were the Roman lands, which is that Polish proclivity to side with Russia back then. But that's why he chose the name, because it's not his real name. Roman son of Poland. Roman Polanski. That's what his name means. And that's, it was a political act to call himself that. By the way, there's a story out of Russia as well that I think it's Medusa is the news source. It's like this internal Russian site that Sergei Kiriyenko.
Used to work with Navalny.
Yeah, Putin's first deputy chief of staff, Sergei Kiriyenko, has worried that, in relation to what I was saying earlier, that soldiers are adapting poorly to civilian life because they've had over 107 murders in Moscow and 100 sexual assaults, because they released 100,000. I guess lucky for them, most of those people are dead, but 100,000 people from penal colonies, and when they come back, they form criminal gangs, and a lot of them are just going back and killing the people that put them in jail in the first place. And Institute for Study of War says they're not paying. Russia paid no attention to what the social impact of this war would be. Didn't care. They didn't factor it in at all.
And there's a huge organized crime problem.
Right. Yeah, it's called the Kremlin. We'll be right back after this with more questions for Phil. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
All right, I'm going to see if I can get a slightly better internet signal. It's starting to break up a little bit. Makes me nervous.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all good.
Every time I hear the word "all right," I've got King's X Tourette's. All right, all right, all right, all right.
Whoops. Lost Phil for a second. Maybe he's unplugging and replugging. There he goes. Yeah.
It always sounds dirty when you say that, Hal.
Hopefully he'll rejoin us. Hopefully he'll be back.
All right.
After the break. All right.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. We lost Phil for a second. I think he was checking his power, and we'll see if it comes back on. He should be rejoining us in a minute. I think he had to unplug his system and oh, there he is. Yep, he's coming back in. I see him appearing in the background. Give him a second, and there he is. Welcome back, Phil.
There
you go.
Yep. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Just in time. We're back on the air, and so you were saying, previous to checking how your power would go, that. Well, let's. You know what? Before we get back into this thing, let's just go with more questions. I just want to make sure I'm not skipping over because we can get down, too far downstream. What do you have there, Johnny?
I've got from Brenda Triplett. What info does Phil have on a possible nuclear accident around Rostov?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
You hear us, Phil? Did you hear us, Phil?
It's glitching a bit.
Yep, I couldn't tell. Can you hear us? I don't know. I will say, and we'll see if...
sorry. Johnny, I didn't quite get that.
Yep, there you go.
Do you hear me?
Sure.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you now. What info does Phil have on a possible nuclear accident around Rostov? I was afraid that would happen again.
Yeah. I don't know that he can hear us in that one. So, insofar as I know, they haven't had one fully yet. There's been suspicions about stuff, but there have been suspicions before. So we don't have any I don't think there's been any real. I mean, there's always a worry about it. He's trying to reset himself, so he'll pop back in. But the issue of Rostov-on-Don for most of them is traditional energy. They have had more like refinery and oil processing plants and natural gas plants blow up because they are getting hit by drone strikes on the regular. Some of which are exacerbated by the fact that anybody who knows how to put out a fire like that has been sent to war to die. So it's and again, not surprising at all. This is insofar as all the stuff I watch online and on these Russian channels, it is nonstop. The constant, ginormous explosions are in and around Moscow, Rostov-on-Don, St. Petersburg, all these places. Phil, we see you now. You're welcome back. I don't know if you can hear us. Oh, there you are. Okay. Should be good. Might take him a second. There's always a delay. But can you hear us, Phil? Checking in, just making sure. There's always that Chris Matthews delay when you're asking him, I don't think he can hear us quite yet. We're sending audio his way, though, and we'll be all right. But
I can hear you.
Okay. So, concerns about a nuclear accident in Rostov-on-Don was the question.
Explosions in Moscow and Rostov-on-Don.
And a nuclear
we're having
threat.
Internet difficulties here, Hal.
Sure.
Give that to me one more time.
So there was concern about a nuclear threat of an accident or specifically an accident in Rostov in Russia. They were asking about that. I have not heard anything concrete about that at all. I haven't seen that. Nope. Okay. So neither has Phil. We'll just take that as wrote at that point. And Johnny, do we have another question just in case I can get that?
Yeah. This is for Phil. Can you ask Phil if Ukrainians are now hunting Russian subs?
Well, again, I don't know that there are any of measure in the Black Sea. I guess that's the problem with subs always. But they ran a bunch of them over here, and those one of them, their biggest and most advanced sub has sound tiles that keep what's going on inside it quiet so other people can't hear it. They fell off during normal exercises. So if you look at it, there's these huge gaping holes in the in the sound tiles on their big premier submarine. I guess if you're testing it, you're working it out. It's going to have a couple of weak spots or whatever. But this was supposedly one that has been trusted and tested and was being sent as close to the United States as any of their others. And I also checked, meanwhile, to everybody else, Jennifer Zhang is one of the people who has reported the most on Xi Jinping's possible stroke. And one of the evidences that it was true was that after it happened in China, there was a huge search for the Chinese word for stroke. And it wasn't on their Pornhub sites. It was the but yeah. So okay, Phil heard that. That's good.
You seem better latched in, Hal. You're coming across much better now. It's
okay. Good. So
it comes and goes. I'm relying on a 4G
hotspot, and then he just says it's gonna fluctuate. That's one of the issues. It will not impact, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the On the Edge podcast, because they shoot that and upload it like everything else. So you won't have to worry about your connection to be able to watch it. He's popping in and out, so I think they're having fluctuation issues in Kiev. I will say that one of the stories I wanted to bring up to him, which I particularly loved, and how are we on time? Yeah, we got about a few minutes left. Was the attack on the I think it's called Chios Lion, or the CHIOS Lion ship by the Houthis. Johnny, did you hear about this?
No.
It's a huge explosion video that people hear. I'll show you. Let's see if I can show you the video online. This is me and Johnny and News. There it is. This is the Houthis hitting this ship with a suicide boat, whatever. Hard to see who was on it, but yeah, it's pretty huge. Just for the record, for all of you, China's going to eat our lunch and Russia's never been stronger. That was a ship that is flagged in Greece, that was carrying Russian oil to China. So just to keep you guys on point about how that's going. Okay, Phil, we see you. We got we got a couple of minutes left, so let's see if we can grab another question.
All right, I'm not going to jinx it, so I'm not going to touch anything.
Don't touch anything.
I don't touch a thing.
Internet signal. If I suddenly disappear, don't worry, it's just the internet.
Yeah.
This is from James Chermio.
Oh, and then he pops out again. There he is. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. Why are people saying that Russia won't stop with Ukraine where they're already being beaten so badly?
I think what they mean is if they're not, if they succeed.
If they succeed in Ukraine, they will be emboldened to keep expanding their traditional empire. And this doesn't necessarily mean tanks on the streets of Warsaw or, say, Tallinn in Estonia. Although that is also, scarily enough, a possibility because they've openly expressed an interest in actually, occupying what used to be their sphere of influence in the Warsaw Pact. Certainly, Poland's on the block for that.
Yep.
The Baltic states certainly are as well. If
is the big question, I think. No, here we go. He's back. There you go. Go ahead, Phil. Or maybe I see him. Maybe I don't. There he is. Yep. You finish what you were saying, Phil. There you go. There you go. Almost. I see him, but we hear you, Phil. It might take a second. Might be that he popped out. It's fluctuating again. Either way, I want to remind everybody, again, On the Edge is his podcast. It will be on tomorrow, a new episode every Sunday, I believe. So, and again, they film it early and they upload it. As much as he's having trouble connecting with us live, that is not an issue for the podcast. So I recommend you check it out. It's at Philip Ittner on YouTube, and that will take you to the podcast itself. Johnny Million, I want to thank you for being on today. And we made it through, man. It was like tech-wise,
Couple twists and turns.
What a tooth pull. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
But
it's been a while since we've had a full-on dropout.
Yeah. And it won't be the last, because between now and the election, you're going to see a lot of DDoS attacks and the like. Oh, Phil popping back in to at least say goodbye. We'll see.
Time.
There you are. Hey, Phil, we're about to sign off.
Okay,
we're on. Podcast.
Yeah, we're going to sign off. Watch this week's episode, On the Edge, with Operator Starsky. We talk all about disinformation. Every American should watch it if they care about the election, because the Russians are interfering with our election. Watch it this week. Maybe it'll give you some tools to defend yourself.
That's right, to push back on it. And
thanks.
And
sorry for the internet.
That's okay.
Gremlins, but that's how we live in Ukraine.
That's right. And you can't apologize for anything that's outside of your control. You can just, and respectfully, I think the nice thing about our audience is they get it, they know it, and they respect it. And we want you to stay safe, and we will see you very, very soon. Everybody check out his the podcast, On the Edge, available, new episode available tomorrow with Operator Starsky. Is that tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's great.
It is tomorrow. We're going to push it back an hour because we've had some clashes with other people scheduling, but we'll be on
awesome
1000 Pacific time.
Excellent.
Nice.
And tomorrow I will be on Brian Karam's podcast, and our dear friend Boston Brian has a show. So it's a very busy Sunday for everybody in the back Biden crowd. We'll be seeing you guys later. Thanks, Johnny Million. You're awesome. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Chicago.
See ya.
See you next week, guys.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Welcome, Johnny. Out.
Bye, you guys. I'm going to let you guys go because it's just too much to deal with on the bandwidth.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Madness.
Okay. See you later, Phil. See you there. See you, Johnny. Love you. Okay, there you go.
Love you.
And they pop back and in and out. They go. All right. Cheers. Cheers. Okay, there you go. Okay, and off they go, and then hang up this, and then and it's all good. All right, and thank you guys, chat room. By the way, let me say, if I may, let me get back into here with you guys. Hi, chat room. Hi, good people of the chat room. Thanks for hanging with me during the dislocation and popping back on. Spectacular, just resilience. Hit that like if you haven't already. Share out the show and help us. I don't know what our more resilient version of the show will be. I'm at home, so this is this is as resilient as it gets. There are a bunch of happy endings, not the least of which is that the tide has turned and a bunch of people that were attacking Biden have now started their retreat, and you will see other people follow suit. And starting this Wednesday, a bunch of us are going into sheepdog mode. That if we're giving everybody till Wednesday to start walking back their Biden attacks, because he's going back on the campaign trail on Thursday, that if they don't do it by Wednesday, we're going to let them have it. We're going to start sheepdogging these folks, a bunch of us, a collection of this side of the aisle, Dem-friendly podcasters and streamers and social media influencers and all those folks. We're gonna be jumping up and down on this this behavior. I don't want to give away too much of it, but we're gonna let them have it, and without using violent rhetoric, for the record. Anyways, much love to you guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to sign off and enjoy the rest of this NASA holiday. And again, big thumbs up to Carl Alessi and Searching for Skylab, if you haven't had a chance to check that out, for all you NASA heads out there. And of course, we send our love to the family of Sheila Jackson Lee, who passed away last night, from pancreatic cancer. Fingers crossed, we'll start building towards a blue wave once this fever passes from the ridiculousness of those around us and blah, 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 blah. Big hug.
Heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will redo. Our army manned the air. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Asshole.